Welcome to the Broken Metatarsal, where we celebrate everything that noughties football had to offer. My name is Rich Williams. Joining me today, Planet Football editor Mark Holmesy Holmes.
Buenos dias.
What?
What do you mean? What?
Well, why Buenos dias?
Because it's different to last week.
Okay, fine. Just you're going to do a different one each podcast.
We'll see.
All right. We started with a howdy. Moved on to Buenos dias. It's a return for our European footy expert Pete Farries.
Hello, a good British Brexit hello.
That's more like it.
Wow. From the European football expert, it's brilliant.
Yes, European. He stay there.
He hates Europe.
And our special guest is a returning Derby supporting comedian and now the host of the Football 365 show. There you go. Got the plug in there for you guys.
Thank you.
Mark Smith. Mark, welcome, mate. You all right?
Very well, yeah. Thanks for having me back on.
It's our pleasure because we enjoyed your company so much last time. So
stop it.
And you were in the area.
Make Ivo Graham's trains work, so it's had to have Mark.
That's more accurate.
Who's Graham?
Ivo Graham was on the 365 show today. Trains didn't work, so it's Mark, you're going to have to do it.
Who's Graham?
Look, I'll turn up and be wherever I need to be and say whatever I need to say. You know this about me by now.
This is not the way you warm someone up, Holmesy. Right?
Yeah, isn't it?
I told you about this
warming him up for weeks.
When you interviewed Eddie Wolstenholme on the last one. I told you need to work on your warming up procedures.
Wow,
for
we've
people.
had feedback saying it was the best interview yet.
Family been listening again, have they?
No, he's my best friend, actually. So
I was half expecting there to be either cards or cakes or balloons, considering it's my birthday this week, but literally
Sorry,
nothing.
this week?
Yes.
Well, that's not close enough then.
But it was like 2 days ago or something. We haven't seen each other since.
I didn't want to draw attention to it, mate.
Yeah, well, you did.
Again.
I'd actually just say take the point.
Take the what?
Take the hint.
Take the hint, mate.
Oh, wow.
How old are you now?
38.
Say no one cares.
38.
Yeah, well, that's not a real one.
No.
If it was 40th, I'd be upset for you. But I can't be.
Holmesy went for a similar kind of, you're nearly a proper adult now on WhatsApp the other day. I was
Nearly.
38, though, is, I'm the oldest of the bunch, aren't I? 38 is definitely one where you start considering what you're going to do for your 40th for the first time.
Oh, I'd be considering a lot more than that. I'd be thinking, do I just end it?
Wow.
Genuinely, why not? Anyway,
Life in general.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It's an absolute pleasure. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Football Index, the football stock market where you can buy and sell players for real money. Sign up today at footballindex.co.uk and use the code TBMIndex. It's our very own code, and you can trade with a £500 money-back guarantee. New customers only, 18 plus, and a reminder of that code, it is TBMIndex if you want that £500 money back guarantee. Mark, since you were last with us on this podcast, something quite incredible has happened, which of course is that you have become a Twitter viral sensation. We should mention at this point. Oh yeah, like you don't know about it.
I didn't need to mention it, but that's all right.
I'm definitely going to mention it because it's one of the biggest tweets of the year, really. If you're not familiar with this was the tweet from Celebrity Mastermind with Amanda Henderson on, who's the actress from Casualty, and her question about Greta Thunberg, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think she was asked, what's the name of the eco warrior? Blah 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 blah. Long explanation, and then she didn't know, which is fine, but she took a punt at it, and she took a punt, and why not have a go? By all means, have a go, and she went viral.
2019 book entitled "No One Is Too Small to Make a Difference" is a collection of speeches made by a Swedish climate change activist. What's her name?
Sharon.
And the thing is, it wasn't me laughing at her. It's just a funny answer. It wasn't me bullying her for saying something. Like, you're supposed to just mastermind. The way it works is you're supposed to just say something rather than pass, because it gets held against you at the end. So you may as well say something. But it just happened to be that I think the word Sharon is quite funny on its own.
Yeah,
it's a perfect storm, really. That's all it was. And actually, it wasn't a very good tweet. It's just one of those that picks up.
Last time I checked, it was over 160,000 likes and about 30,000 retweets. Has your timeline just been going ping, crazy?
I muted it within about an hour.
Right.
As soon as it looked like going big, I thought, this can't be my next week of my life, can it? But then I had like Sky News and LBC calling me up for interviews to talk about the tweet. And I was like, at most, that is a 5-second interview. What do you want me to say?
I didn't do it.
Yeah, I did the tweet. See you later.
Yeah, I didn't say Sharon.
Yeah, I just put my phone out.
Yeah.
All of it was get my phone out. You can hear my wife cooking fajitas in the background. It's like, this is not a high budget thing.
What sort of fajitas?
Chicken.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Could you fight that animal? Could you fight a chicken, Mark?
Sorry?
Could you fight a chicken?
A live chicken?
Yeah.
Well, of course, could. Easy.
Absolutely.
Bring its neck. So.
You couldn't fight a dead one.
No, it's
Well,
more
it'd be
that
difficult. It wouldn't
it's
get
more
going,
Mark's
would it?
theory. Just for anyone who hasn't heard, Mark's theory that he could take on any animal, any place in the world, and defeat them regardless of the size of animal. So Pete's starting off with a chicken there, but you'd go as far as a bear or anything
I'm
like
not
that.
going to encourage
With the
this.
caveat
No.
that it's.
You've had him regretting
attacking
already
it's,
mentioning it.
Preference of life. Any animal.
Yeah, you're not gonna go around killing an animal willy nilly.
I'm not going
This is
to run
either
in, oi bear, I'll have you.
it's
No
you
way.
or the bear.
Yeah, the bear dies.
Look, I've got a train to catch. Can you move this on a bit?
Absolutely. We've covered Sharon, your tweet, and also Mark's obsession with defeating animals in a life or death scenario. So, moving on from that, welcome along and thanks for listening in. Each episode, we dig into one element of the noughties, from the sublime to the ridiculous. I think we've probably covered that off already, haven't we? Today, it's time to reminisce, to remember and rejoice, to hark back to happier times, to put aside the modern Premier League pantomime prior to the billionaire owners, when the shirts were baggier, the shorts were dirtier, before the big four became the big six and Cristiano Ronaldo would always do one too many tricks. Today we celebrate the glorious golden era. It's the things we miss most about football in the noughties. I don't know how you want to do this. Do you want to just throw things out there of things you miss about football in the noughties, which we've all established and people listening will know is it's the golden era of football? Should we just start it off? I mean, Mark Holmesy, would you like to just throw one out there, start it off?
Everything.
Okay,
which is
fine.
why we started a podcast.
Great.
All about 2000s football.
Let's
the
move
end.
to football fact and football fiction, and then you've got your train to catch, and
It leaves in 4 minutes. If that's okay.
everyone's
That's quite nice of you, this, isn't it?
Yeah, really
Okay,
nice.
break it down for me. You can't just say everything.
The one that sprung to my mind straight away was unknown signings. Because now, it doesn't matter who you sign. It could be a player from the Slovenian second division, and within seconds, there'll be someone on Twitter, he's really good. He's got a really good... Because it's in a YouTube compilation on. There was none of that.
Or you go on transfermark.com.
Exactly.
And,
And who's got all these stats, and you can paint yourself out as an expert of literally anyone. Back in the day, you would, Derby, Stoke, those kind of clubs, you would sign players that you had never heard of, genuinely, and you couldn't find anything else.
It happened
out
to
about
bigger
them.
clubs than that even
Yeah.
still. Like it was genuinely, who is this person on the team sheet? Who is it?
And it's way more exciting.
Way more exciting because you don't know if it was a legitimate top player from some obscure foreign league or if it's just a guy they found outside the stadium. I've got a pair of boots. Yeah, come on, play.
I think that happened quite a few times with Stoke, actually.
Happened at
I actually
Derby,
remember
but-
going to a game away at Bury with Stoke, and this is a genuine story. Peter Thorne, who was our best striker at the time, turned up 5-10 minutes into the match and sat behind me and my dad, and he's watching for a couple of minutes, and he taps my dad on the shoulder and says, "Who's that up front for us?" He didn't know who the hell we'd signed, and that was an actual player.
Yeah.
That actual team didn't even know.
The other thing about players now having YouTube reels and all this kind of stuff is that all players that are signed now look better than they are, which I find quite annoying. So if Leeds sign someone, you go on, you go, look at this, gets around on the WhatsApp, look at this skill, unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. Hardcore music. I'm not even joking. I am useless at football and could put together a reasonable show reel to go onto YouTube that people would look at and think, oh, look at him, he just did a little swivel. Look at that. But there was none of that then. So it was that kind of, that unknown, there was the kind of unwrapping of who is this player going to be.
I always went with Football Manager, or at the time Championship Manager stats as well. So you'd go, oh, he signed him. I always try and buy him on Football Manager or Championship Manager.
But teams did that as well.
Yeah, teams did that as well. So you would have this thing of like, oh, whoa, like you get small name recognition, but you still don't quite know them. So you go, I think he could be good. He's got 15 on finishing. And all of a sudden, like you go into that and then you get excited by those players. Now, obviously, you follow 15, 20 different experts from across the world. Oh, this player's doing this player's doing this. There's the tweets, there's the YouTube stuff. It's all going around. But there, my focus was normally just, right, we've been linked with this guy. Let's have a look. And you click on him, you work it out. And that was one of the pure joys of that time.
What I used to like is the idea that if I don't know who it is and none of my friends who are fans know who it is, the team that we're playing against probably doesn't know that
Yes.
much about the manager.
Agreed.
Anything
Agreed.
can happen. We signed Gregor Raziak at Derby,
Yeah.
and I'd never ever heard of him. First I seen of him, he was banging in some pretty special goals for us quite quickly. He got to move to Tottenham in the end, but it was a genuine unknown. And I remember thinking, how do you coach against that?
Yeah.
If we're playing whoever it is that week, Sheffield United, what are they going to say? Oh, the lads up front, just have a wait and see, I suppose. See how he gets on.
I do like the idea that because we didn't know, they didn't know. They haven't got scouting departments. They do not know. It's not on YouTube. They've got no clue who this guy is.
Yeah, but I actually do believe that because
You
I
do
think
believe that?
I think that the 2000s, yes, it was corporate by that point, and yes, it was a lot of money behind it, but it isn't the same as what it was as what it is now.
This is
and
exactly, yeah.
And there is still that fun part of the game which felt quite amateurish.
I think what you're saying is Brexit's here. Let's ban all compilations of foreign YouTube players. So no one knows
Yes.
anything.
I'm saluting as we speak.
And then every player signed from overseas we get really excited about because we don't know anything about them.
I can't believe we've got a double Brexit mention so far.
8 minutes
That's-
in.
That's quite
Especially
astonishing.
considering the beliefs of us in this room, generally speaking. Yeah.
Well, speak for yourself, Pete.
I will. I'll make it
Mark's-
painfully clear, Holmes.
Mark's trying to make Stoke its own nation state. So,
Stoke is trying to make Stoke its own nation state.
we start with that then, which is unknown signings. Are there any that spring to mind for you? You could just name that you're thinking about.
Stoke-wise, there's a guy called Sammy Bangura who we signed in the mid-2000s, and he comes from Standard Liège, so not an unknown club, and it was 900 grand, which was a lot of money for us at the time. But I knew nothing about him, and he didn't make his debut for 2 months. So still,
Something's
someone's
fishy.
kind of right here. But he ended up scoring 8 goals in 9 games. And I was at uni at the time with Alex Brooker, who will tell you all about Sammy Bangura. Absolutely love the guy. Then he went to the AFCON with Guinea. And just didn't come back. He went AWOL. We had the manager. It was a brilliant season for Stoke. We had a manager called Johan Boskamp, who was Dutch, and just said what he meant. And he said he'd like to kick him in the bollocks. He eventually did come back. Pre-season went AWOL again and ended up leaving for Boa Vista, I think it was. Got called a disgrace by the chairman. So it's just loads of fun.
That would be great
yeah.
value now, wouldn't it? 900 grand to get 8 goals.
Yeah.
About
Well,
110 and a bit grand a goal. That's pretty good value going, isn't it?
But there was that kind of balance as well, where actually it wasn't just players coming in. It was once a player left, it was much harder to actually track what they were doing.
Gone.
So gone. So it was kind of outside, out of mind, which is you could look at on both sides as a good or a bad thing. But there was that thing of once they'd left. Right, they're done forever. You don't need to hear about how when they were with you, they scored 1 goal in 45 games, but now they're in Belgium scoring 60 in 10.
To be fair, I still abide by that, Pete. Anyone who leaves Stoke are now dead to me. I don't care. They don't exist.
They've left the Republic of
They've left
Stoke.
the Republic of Stoke. They no longer exist.
They've been bangora'd.
Yeah, they've been banged. It's family.
Mark, what were you thinking of when you think back to Norton? Those things that you really, really miss. What's springs to mind?
I'm a big fan of the football shirts that didn't fit properly. The ones that were too big.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. First of all, it was more like the 90s football, which I was brought up on, and I love that, whatever. But secondly, the players I'm watching already are often very good-looking people who are extremely good at their jobs, multimillionaire, famous people, greatest lives you could possibly imagine. I don't also need to see how perfectly chiseled they are. I'd rather you be in a dumb, baggy shirt, frankly look like shit, and I can then get on board a little bit and be like, oh, he is human, it's fine. Now I watch football, it's like, well, these chiseled athletes, it's too much for me, man, I can't handle it.
This plays exactly into what one of my topics was going to be, which is
sorry,
I don't feel like footballers are normal people anymore.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like you go on, you put TV on, and everyone is slick. Everyone looks like they've been hit by an Assos bomb.
Yeah.
And it's like this kind of these silky sort of shiny things. Whereas before, I mean, there is no way, no matter how good they were at football, someone who looked like Martin Keown would make it to football now. Or if they did, it'd be like the cut down the side, beautifully gelled,
The marketing
curled hair.
department would not let him sign for
The
that.
Impossible.
Giroud cut, as it's known
The
in
Giroud
industry.
cut, like
By the way, the thing with the shirts, I mean, in the 90s and the 2000s, anyone of any shape could buy a football shirt, wear it in the
Yeah.
stands, and not look ridiculous to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Now, but with them being, that if you've got a Spurs shirt, or for example, they're very tight fitting. You can't get away with that. If
Not
you're-
very
when-
forgiving, is it really?
Not at all. And if you're literally a couple of pounds overweight, you're going to see every ounce of that.
Well, they do that. What's it called? It's called like the player
Stadium
fit
shirt.
or whatever.
Right,
That,
yeah.
There's that, and then there are the regular fit up to
When Roma-
5 times XL or whatever it is.
When Roma bought in the Kappa shirt, that was the sort of the sea change. We're in trouble.
the second skin kind of thing.
Yeah.
As if you already knew that you're on a different level from a footballer. They were in a different place, but now you can't even fit in the shirts
I
that
have
they're
to
wearing.
take umbrage with you though, Pete. for two things. One, ASOS, I've never heard it pronounced like that, and I stand to be corrected, but
I'm happy.
surely...
What are you
I'm
saying,
happy with-
ASOS?
I would have thought so.
I don't think it matters.
I don't lose
Wow.
sleep over it.
I am losing.
I'm actually
It shot me to the core.
on neither one of yours team with this.
Oh, God, did you have a different way of saying it?
No, I just don't care about it.
In fact, yeah.
Hey,
no,
so
You are on my team, actually. I couldn't give a shit.
And the other thing was, I do not buy into the idea that there are no ugly footballers now.
No, it's not about ugliness. It's just about that look, isn't it? It's about the kind of so
Identical.
coiffured.
Yeah.
it's like a production line.
Yeah, it's all these things. You can imagine them all wearing like trousers that are slightly too short for the leg with the sockless shoe. You know, that kind of. I don't feel like there's many footballers you get through now, and they feel like normal people. You go back to even the 2000s where this was starting to change. You had Beckham and you had a few others, but there was still a huge glut of normal-looking, normal people.
Yeah.
And along with the shirts, I think that's a big part of it. But I don't get that feeling now. Every time I turn the TV on, someone's just looking great.
But I'll tell you what it is.
God.
That's not because the facial structure of people. It's because if you are a young man who may be single or whatever, and you've got a lot of money, you can chuck money at it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You can get your teeth done, you can do whatever. And people are much more open to that generally now.
Yeah.
So I think actually it's a product of society because you see it all the time. You go on anyone's Facebook, everyone looks exactly the same in the club.
Yeah.
And all awful.
I'm not having this one.
What?
Is it not just that we're older now, so we don't have cool haircuts and sit in the
Right, Holmes has been for a haircut this week, right? What was the instruction to your hairdresser?
I'm too lazy to get it cut, so just quit really short so it lasts for ages.
So I don't have to come back, basically. Like, us three, on the other hand, you've got a lovely haircut.
Well, I did disagree,
we'll-
but
we'll-
Pete and I are in a situation where we go to the hairdresser and say, just make it the best it looks, so it
As
looks
thick as
like it's not
possible.
receding.
Yeah,
Make it
as
look
thick
as thick as possible.
yeah.
Mike, you've got a lovely head of hair over
Beautiful
there.
head of hair, thank
I
you.
disagree, but I'm not going on about footballers having great hair.
It's just I feel like there's less players that you can immediately kind of relate to.
Latch onto, yeah.
Latch onto. That's I think probably it. They feel too kind of like up in the air, up in space
Pete,
now.
I miss that, absolutely. I
Yeah.
feel like back in the 2000s, there'd be players that you go, well, he could be a mate of mine down the pub.
Yeah.
They don't exist anymore.
No.
Okay, what I will give you, I'll
This
give
is
you
a negotiation,
I'll give you
I'm
one
confused.
point.
Holmesy is
Is
so aggro today.
I'll
Go on.
negotiate on the thing that you remember.
the thing that I do remember, which you can have, is when Wayne Rooney had that Ford KA, which just would not happen today. Like Brandon Williams has probably got a Ferrari or something. So
interesting.
I will give you
Maybe
that.
Rooney was the peak of players seeming normal lads and normal blokes, and then after Rooney, football couldn't match someone being that normal anymore, and
Yeah.
we might have that might be the
it.
zenith.
That could be it.
That was
Yeah.
the tipping point. Interestingly, in your ASOS debate, surely it's a Ford Ka, not a Ford
Well, do
KA.
you know what? I don't
Oh, I still don't care.
I
I still don't care.
Ford, get in touch, you know.
yeah,
Season
Give us a
three,
free,
who
give us a
knows?
free Ford car.
Oh my God, we're all going to be driving around in Ford cars with amazing clothes from ASOS.
Cannot wait.
Can I throw one in there? There's a danger of this, and I really don't want it to be that kind of like just sounding old. And I don't want to do that. But I genuinely think this totally changed things. Is going to a football match without, and it's for a lot of things in life, without having a phone to take the pictures.
Like granddad.
And oh, come on, David. But I think it's totally
The sound of his
changed.
gramophone.
It's totally changed how people watch football in a stadium and when you're watching it with your mates and
But
people on
has it?
Twitter following. Yes, it has.
It's but a certain sort of person is using
Yeah.
their phone in the stadium. It's not. I didn't use it when I couldn't, and I don't use it now.
didn't
And I
use
don't
it when I
think
couldn't.
that.
I don't use it
think
now
people
either.
are. I think that tourists might be, but they'd have been doing something else with a camera anyway at the time, right?
I agree. You're not
Yeah.
having this one either from me.
Flipping heck. It's my thing that I miss from the noughties. You can't take it away from me.
it's kind
It's
of
my
that thing-
You miss the fact that something hadn't really been invented yet.
I'll behave a lot.
Because my dad used to take a radio with him and listen to the BBC T's commentary
Yes,
while he was
that's
watching the games. So he had that on at the same time. Isn't it just an extension of that to a certain extent?
And I'm sure that when your dad was doing that, people like him were saying, "Oh, what's he got that
yeah.
All right,
contraption for?"
Right,
Wireless.
let me
You
give
get
you
back-
a
use
let me give
carrier
you a,
pigeons.
Let me
Yeah.
give you a tangible example of this. Okay, a great thing at the end of a match is when the announcer reads out the scores of the other games.
Yeah.
Okay, because people don't know what it's going to be, and there's a moment in the stadium. All right, that's
Bastard,
gone.
He's won me round.
Yeah, I completely get it.
Retort.
I completely get it.
Here we go. Here's a retort. Would you have not got that on a radio previously?
No, listen, I'm not saying it doesn't.
Inside the
No,
stadium,
of course you could have done. Of course, I'm just saying that was. I remember, half time and then the full time scores
Yeah.
was a thing
Yeah,
on
it
the
was,
way
yeah,
out.
it was, yeah.
Forest
Now
Hills,
you still when it comes
We
upon
did it, Vale and Crew. Half
right, so
time.
Yeah,
when
you
it comes
did, yeah.
when it comes up on the screen, even if everyone knows it, you still have a bit of a cheer about it, if one of your rivals has lost. But that was a genuine part of going to football, which I think has been lost slightly. And it's to do with the phones and the...
You've won
You can't have that one. You can't have that one.
I'm 100%
You're absolutely
on board.
right.
I didn't realise these were all going to be so hard fought.
I didn't think it was even that sort of format.
I've made it.
I thought we were just
It
saying,
was-
this is what I remember.
It was supposed
What I
to
will
be a
say,
nice
Mark
chat.
Smith, is that this is the first time this has happened. And we're all paddling quite quickly under the surface as
Right.
Mark Holmes just
on,
lays
Smart.
waste of the
You're not having
podcast.
that. You're not having that.
Smarty pants
We
over
can't
there.
have
Come on then,
this.
give us another one then.
Um,
And whatever it is, I'm shooting you down. Go.
Okay, so I'm just looking through some of the suggestions. We had loads. We put a tweet out saying things you missed, and we had loads which just says that we're doing a great podcast tonight. This was one
that one.
actually that me and Mark were talking about, but just club spending with just reckless abandon before it got such a
Yes.
bloody bad name.
Yes.
Before everyone thought it was terrible and points deductions and things like that were coming. Just spend and
what you
mess
want.
yourselves up like Leeds. It's just great.
All right,
What's the highest number you can think of? Right, put it on this check.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Double it, not even close.
The stories of like Seth Johnson signing for Derby and all that
Yes.
stuff.
And
No, it was
Leeds,
signing
sorry,
for
went
Leeds,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry for Leeds.
Yeah,
not
they
Derby,
went in with an amount that they wanted, and Peter Ridsdale
30
just goes,
30 grand.
"It's-
They were looking
I don't know what the number,
They were looking for $7,000 a week,
something like that, and he
and he
goes,
offered 30.
but it was something along the lines
We've
of,
actually interviewed Steph.
it was something
and
along-
he disputes.
Oh,
a lot
really?
of that.
okay,
But
so-
yeah, as the myth goes.
but for the purposes of entertainment.
As an indicator of what Leeds were like.
And there was so
during
much
that
going
time.
on at Leeds at the time that I'm happy to go down that line. That it
run
wasn't
with
a
it.
one-off kind of thing. But yeah, they went in with whatever that amount was. Let's say it was 7,000. And the story goes something along the lines of that. Peter Ridsdale, he didn't look happy when he was, but so he just kind of panicked and said,
Yeah.
"We'll give you 30 grand, 30 grand a week." And they were like, "Okay, we'll sign that." But yeah, it's reckless abandon. I mean, Leeds is obviously the example which led to our demise for a period of time. But yeah, it was kind of, I guess, when Abramovich comes in,
It was
and
Abramovich.
It's just spend. It's a bit
Yeah.
like, oh wow, this is different, and look at all the money, and look
It's
at
as
the players
soon as
coming in.
Abramovich comes in. It's that moment. That's literally the pinpoint.
Yeah, but I suppose the difference between then and now, and the reason it was exciting then, was that it was new,
Yeah.
and we had an oligarch
Yeah.
came to the country and just completely opened his wallet and said, "I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to get in Jose, this exciting young guy who we'll get onto later, I'm sure, and I'm going to spend what I want." And when you saw every other day there'd be something happening that summer, you'd see like Makelele would go, then you'd see it was the same summer, but
Crespo
you'd see
or
Crespo, Damien Duff, Scott Parker, and it was just like everybody you ever imagined could sign was signing. Well, I mean, obviously way too many in the end and too much money, but it was like for the first time in my life watching Championship Manager with all the cheats on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just going, right, that's what this guy's doing.
We did a full episode about Chelsea, and I feel exactly the same way. Loved that. I was on my first lads' holiday that summer. We were buying the paper every day. I won't say which one because it's frowned upon these days. But but yeah, every day back page.
I think we know the one you're talking about.
Chelsea are going to sign another player, and it was oh my God, they're going to sign Wayne Rooney. It was just
Yeah,
tremendously exciting, and it was great because nowadays it's FFP and stuff. And not anyone can do it. But back then it was like, well, if it can happen to Chelsea,
Yep.
it could happen to my club.
Yeah.
And it was just so exciting that someone could take over a club and just take it from 0 to hero in like 2 seasons.
So from a Leeds point of view, obviously that doesn't end well for us. But at the time,
Yeah,
you didn't know sensational. I mean, Ferdinand signs for 18 million. There's a Robbie Fowler, and there's this one and that one. You're just like, what's going on? This is incredible. Where's all this money? Where's all this money come from? I'm going to cry. Where's all this money come from? Nowhere, Rich.
Yeah,
That's the
we've made
problem.
it up.
Yes,
And now where's
didn't
it gone?
exist. We'll have the money if you qualify for the Champions League. Oh, shit. But it was like incredible, sort of the kind of players that were moving around and the money, and it just all upped up. And it felt like, in the way that it doesn't feel now, it just feels ridiculous now. And you're talking about signing players that you'd never heard of for silly, like small amounts of money. You sign the same player now, it's a minimum 6 million, and they're still going to be crap.
There's no such thing as a small signing.
Exactly. So, but at that point, it was just incredible.
Is there an element of relativity to that though? Because I remember when Nicky Barmby went to Borough, or when Andy Cole went to Manchester United, and these sums at the time that now are absolute small fry. People going, how much for Andy Cole? How much have Manchester United spent? That is obscene. That is a disgrace. Yeah. And there is an element of the escalation which has been insane. Don't get me wrong, but there was always that kind of, that's too much money for a human being to play football, wasn't there?
Well, I remember being at school and people saying that this player earns £15,000 a week, and us being like, "Oh my God, what? This is mad." But now, I mean,
Lower Championship.
I mean, there's players in League One making more than that. But if you're looking at the money coming in from abroad, from oligarchs, from wherever, it seemed quite quaint and interesting still then. I think it was only when Man City, when that happened, and it was bought by essentially an oil state, where it became a bit more serious, a bit less sort of cuddly. Not that Russian oligarchs are cuddly, but relatively.
Come over here, Roman, give us for a snuggle.
But it now just seems like football is defined by that rather than it be an interesting addition to it.
That's the way to look at it.
Along a kind of similar theme to all this was not necessarily a club going full oligarch or whatever, but like Bolton signing JJ Kocher. Stuff that it was best in the 90s when the foreign players first started coming over, but even in the 2000s you had that ridiculous mix of like old British players who'd been like life clubbers or whatever, and then guys like JJ Kocher coming in here,
and Djorkaeff and Campo,
it's just sensational. Love that mix.
Should we mention him because he got a half mention anyway? Mourinho, when we all loved Mourinho, Fun Jose. Yeah, Jose. What a guy! What a guy!
But we see Fun Jose every 3 years because he's Fun Jose for about 3 weeks of every new job he gets before he loses his mind and starts sort of stabbing his own players.
But when you go back to when he first came over and that first period, and we've talked about this on a Chelsea podcast. Go and catch up. At that point, it's a breath of fresh air, isn't it? And he's just great, just a great part of that era.
Yeah.
I think part of that is that at that time you did have some big name managers, but you had really Wenger and Ferguson, who were the big kind of like daddies of the Premier League.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this insolent young pup comes in, but that pup is also fucking unbelievable at his job. So all of a sudden he comes in, and not just is he great at his job, not just is he a young upstart as opposed to these two sort of big guys, he's also just coming in and he's got the quips and he looks quite cool and he's running down touch lines when he's at Port and all this stuff, and all of a sudden you get this lovely Mourinho, and then you get to the Mourinho we get to now, which you're right, it very quickly descends into kind of this insular character, which is sad because I do remember, as we've said on that Mourinho podcast, I adored that man.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, Jose was the substitute English teacher who would come to your class and he'd sit on the chair backwards, like, and he'd be like, who is this cool guy? Because we'd never seen anyone like Pete says. Yeah, there were huge name managers that we'd seen over the years, but no one who was sort of as glamorous as this, who looked the way he looked, who spoke with such confidence. It was like, oh my god, this is so good. I love this man.
I think you've got to the crux of it there. Now, there's nothing new can happen. There's nothing new, there's nothing different can happen. In the 2000s, new things are happening all the time.
Yeah.
Big name managers, big name players coming over as the Premier League got richer and richer. So it's just constantly exciting now. It's done. Football's finished.
Right, okay.
End.
Oh, blimey. Mate, take a deep breath. It's okay.
I know.
It's all good.
We're still struggling, I'm sorry.
I like the idea that there's a possible substitute teacher listening right now who's going to try that tomorrow. I'm going to go with the old backward chair job.
The episode of The Simpsons where... And speaking of The Simpsons, by the way...
Yeah.
You were, yeah.
It was, yeah. I genuinely didn't mean to do that link, but I have done. I know you're going to ask me in a second, Rich, but I'm going to jump in here because there's a link here.
Go for it.
The Simpsons being on at 6 o'clock on Sky One straight after a game on a Sunday, right? Oh. Where the match would finish straight away over to Sky One when The Simpsons was still good.
And then a double bill, and the second one was the new one.
And the second one was the new one. So you watched the first one, and then as it went, you kind of got less arsed about the second one. But that brings an unbelievable sense of like joy to me. Do you know what I mean? Like the idea, because that was what made
Sundays.
That's what made a Sunday. You had a Sunday dinner or whatever. You saw your grandma in the morning, and then you watched the game on the afternoon, and then football was done. A lovely episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah, now you've not even got 4 o'clock kickoffs anymore.
There's something about that, the set routine of how things work, whereas now it's all over I would never be one to say there's too much football on TV, but there was a certain thing about knowing that it was in chunks, and it's a little bit like
Sunday done.
It's a little bit like going back to talking about Twitter and everything's on there at the moment. For me back then, match of the day was a more important thing on a night that if I went out into town, we'd start off in a bar that had that on in the background because that's what we wanted to see before we went on to do whatever, whereas now you've got the goals. So I think there is something in that kind of routine that it became that, and now it's just whenever, wherever, constant, all the time.
Is there also something to be said about the shared collective experience of watching Match of the Day at the same time? Because now I've not seen anything apart from live sport at the time it goes out for years. Match of the Day for me, I watch on a Sunday now. I don't need to watch on a Saturday night.
Yep.
And I think you miss out a lot of that as well.
Also, this is very much take me back to my day when I was young and everything was great, but I swear Super Sunday used to be better than what it was.
But they called it that for a reason. Yeah, it was good for a
It used
bit.
to be like the biggest games of the
Yeah.
week, and now it's just any old shit.
Did they
on
say
there.
Super Sunday every week? It wasn't every week, was it? It was just
No,
when
I
the
think you're
biggest
right.
games
Big
were.
game, yeah. That was in the 90s, though.
Yeah, it was like 90s, was
I
it?
think so, yeah.
Well,
Can we
can't
mention
talk
it once?
That's it then. No, yeah. For God's sake, Mark.
That's one strike, 3 and you're out.
But you're right, they'd bill it as Super Sunday when they had specifically 2 great games on. And now, at the weekend, there was one game on, and it was a good game, actually. Arsenal-Everton was a decent game. But there's been Super Sundays when there's been 1 goal scored over 3 games. I was like, all right, lads, come on. Just call it
Rainier.
Sunday. Football Sunday.
Yeah. There you go.
Agreed. Passed.
Phew. Pleased about that. Let's just mention another one that was suggested to us as well. Strike partnerships, says Andrew Chadwick, which was a thing that's kind of disappeared over the years, really, hasn't it? As more teams have got a kind of one up front situation going on, or a sort of 3, but that kind of 2, or the big man, small man, was still around then, wasn't it?
It's rubbish these days because people get away.
You start everything
with saying-
with, it's rubbish these days.
It's rubbish. But it's actually a myth because everyone wants to play number 10, but they don't score any goals. Like back in the day, Bergkamp and Zola were number 10. They scored loads of goals, and Sheringham. What do these number 10s do these days? They just play there, 5 assists a season.
This is an old man just
It's
shouting
brilliant,
at the
isn't it?
sun.
Brilliant.
You
Old
know
man
the-
shouts at cloud.
That's the Simpsons meme, isn't it?
You all right, mate?
I'm not all right, actually. But number 10s need to start contributing.
There is definite strike partnerships, and things like the 4-2-3-1 has, of course, like gone towards killing that. But I don't know. It's interesting because it kind of comes back to what we were saying in terms of like how it was much more about a collective thing where that was a team, whereas now a lot of the focus, and we're part of this as the media, is on one person. So before it was like, right, so it's York and Cole or whatever, Shearer and Sutton or whatever. Quinn and Phillips, right, amazing. But now it's kind of, now you wouldn't be sort of saying, you'd be saying, well, Kevin Phillips scores most of the goals in that situation. That's only focused on Kevin Phillips. Do you see what I mean? Like the focus has moved from what is the collective, what's great about this team, to what's great about that person within this team. Yeah. And that kind of, I think, has added towards that. I think it's a good shout, strike partnerships. Because how many
yours?
I know.
Wasn't yours.
It was my mate though, actually. But
Congratulations, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I can
Praise by proxy.
in the let's just go England, right? English football right now, Premier League. What's a strike partnership in the Premier League right now?
Wood and who's at Burnley?
Barnes.
Wood and Barnes. But the fact is, you're right. The fact that I know that is because it's been brought up a lot this season, because it's pretty much the only one. Now, this is all cyclical, of course.
Yeah,
I
of
think
course,
it could be in a year, 2, 5, 6 years' time. We're all back to 4-4-2. And we're starting to see it a little bit. Teams are starting to experiment again with it and praying they're not too open in the middle of the park. But I do miss a strike partnership. Absolutely. That would be high up on my list of things I miss from the 2000s.
Who was the one in the Watford one? Was it Gallo and
Deeney, surely.
was it Gallo and
Yeah.
Deeney? Was it? Because that did
was
feel
proper.
like a proper partnership.
But actually, look at United. I mean, the way Rashford plays is very much, all right, he starts on the left, but him and Martial are
What
up
are you
top.
doing? What are you doing?
What do you mean?
This is modern football. We don't talk about modern football.
Well,
Stop
I'm
it.
doing
it's modern football
Stop
in relation to
immediately.
2000s football.
No.
So we do sort of say it a little bit, but we're not having that SAS style.
Yeah.
That was 90s.
Acronyms, they've gone. Where are they? Or initialisms, as if you want to get specific.
I don't.
I do not.
No, I'm not sure I want to go down that route either. Can I mention one here, which is football for me in that era was the perfect balance between aggressive tackling and being able to get away with stuff, I think, is the best way of putting that. So I'm not suggesting that football was greatest in the 70s and 80s when, players were kicking lumps out of each other on pitches that were not exactly contributing to free-flowing football. And I'm certainly not suggesting that now, where you literally you can hardly do anything without getting a yellow card or worse, or VAR, whatever it is. That to me seemed an era where you could still have battles between big physical players in a game. You could throw a cheeky but semi-malicious, not fully malicious elbow and get away with it. But it kind of contributed to a slightly more aggressive game than we got now.
Less shiny. That's the thing that it comes
Less
down to,
shiny.
isn't it? Less shiny.
Buggery before it got such a bad name.
Yeah, exactly. But if you think about the Keenan Vieira or those
Shearer and Bergkamp players like with the elbows.
that kind of thing. It was better, wasn't it? It was better then. You don't get any flare-ups now. You never get a flare-up in a game.
I also think that, you talk about sort of hard men in that scenario. So you talk about, somebody mentioned there Savage as well would be a good example. you had an element of pantomime to the game that has been lost a little bit. It's been ironed out by just money, essentially.
And sponsors. And
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, as long as fans are aware that it is pantomime, it's not real. A lot of them don't, unfortunately. But I remember, really booing Robbie Savage when he was at Leicester and hating him because he had long hair and he had a Gucci tattoo, whatever it was, Armani tattoo, and he was just seemed like a dick. I didn't really hate him, but on the pitch, he played into it. His persona was one of a dick. The next season, he's Derby County's captain, so I love him.
Turns out he was a dick, but that's just
whatever.
There are some players who still play that role a little bit now. I would suggest.
Yeah.
But I just think at the time, if you're just imagine some of those players playing now, how sanitized they would become, or how would Vieira be if he was playing now? Would he be able to be as hard? Would he be able to be as tough tackling and as hard as he was then, or would that have taken something away from his game?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. He'd be someone realistically who would get booked at least once
whole
a game.
time.
all the time.
And if he doesn't get booked all the time, you're right. He has to take a big part of his game out of it, and you don't get Patrick Vieira anymore. You just get any one of the centre midfielders currently playing.
I just think that era was like a good balance. Like you can get away with being silly, but you could get away with having a bit of a ruckus with
And
some.
the ability was
protection
still
there,
was still so high that these were technically brilliant players who happened to be able to mix it up like that.
And you can listen to more about those kind of players on episode 2 of series 2 of The Broken Metatarsal, all about shithouses.
Yeah, well,
episode 1, sorry.
Shithouses, but not hard men. Pete, you give us one.
I think for me, I always look back on those Champions League nights on ITV. I know that's it's a very 90s memory when you first go there, still going heavily into the 2000s, of course. But I think we had this on one of our requests as well. Was it Adrian Hearn who said this as well? I would completely agree with this. The feeling of warmth sitting in a house on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, whichever one they were allowed to do, I can't remember, and just watching those games from the 90s into the 2000s before ITV lost the contract. Those were the nights where European football felt really tangible and touchable.
And again, it's like collective experience where you knew there were 8 million people doing the same thing. Whereas now, I don't know the figures, but
they're not.
No one's got BT Sport.
And also, back then, there was only that game to watch.
Yeah,
whereas
right.
now everyone's like, oh, I'm on the Red button watching that, I'm watching that on the app, whatever. Everyone was watching that one game, and if there was Twitter in that day, we'd all be tweeting about it, but we'd be texting or whatever. And like I said, it was a shared experience.
Yeah, and you had commentators who you grew to love, and just Clive Tilsley became essentially the voice of
Manchester
Champions
United.
League. Well, yeah, he did. But it was like, oh, I know where I am. This is my uncle Clive is now commentating on this brilliant Champions League night, and now it's been sort of blown apart by too many options.
And I suppose that comes back to Tyler and actually Andy Gray, which without getting into the Andy Gray Richard Key stuff, Gray and Tyler were the sound of a Sunday, weren't they?
Andy Gray was absolutely brilliant.
He was a great
co-commentator. I know what happened, whatever. As a broadcaster, he was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought. I mean, he was as good as Gary Neville is now.
Yeah.
His knowledge of the game was unreal.
Mm.
He was just new, and he was the first one, really, the ex-player to come through and really make it as a broadcaster. Him and Richard Keys together was brilliant. Was absolutely brilliant. No matter what happened afterwards, which obviously
and during and possibly before.
Tell you what, I'm not pleased has gone. The Intertoto Cup, the greatest European Cup competition of all time.
When did that go then?
It was mid-2000s, wasn't it?
I thought it was towards late 2000s.
May have been.
Yeah,
I
like
don't
2008,
know.
something
As
like
you
that.
know, Richard, I did my research.
Yeah.
Just a great competition. Who's going to win it? Who knows? Because there's about 17 different finals of it. And that's just, give everyone a chance. Fair play. You playing your, everyone playing your. I remember there was one year when Spurs just didn't, because it started in 2 weeks after the last season finished, and it was ridiculous. Yeah. And Spurs just obviously didn't want to play in it, so they just they loaned a load of rubbish players just to play in Intertoto. Got 2-month loan deals or whatever, and then got Alan Pardew when he was 34 or something, played in the Intertoto Cup for him.
I was going to say it's strange to have a competition that teams don't want to play in, but we've got that with domestic cups now, don't we? So it's not it's not
most tournaments. I think most tournaments people don't want to play in
until the business end, really.
Well, because it's just Premier League is where the money is, and that's all that matters. That's all they're bothered about. I mean, even Champions League, you could argue, more prestigious, but the money is in the Premier League. That's why they want to break away and do their own European league. It's because foreign countries or foreign teams, Bayern Munich, Juventus, wherever, they know that they can make more money doing that, and we know that we can't.
There was a couple of huge teams in Europe a couple of years ago who were saying the money we get for winning the Europa League or putting a lot of pressure and a lot of focus on the Europa League almost doesn't cover our travel costs, the security, and all these other things, because it is just that minimal. And these clubs are so vast and have got so many things to think about.
Stop going first class, you greedy twats. Do you know what I mean? Hop on a Ryanair and you'll be absolutely fine. Don't worry about it.
It's mad, isn't it? But yeah, it was a time where tournaments meant more, perhaps. But the end of perhaps where tournaments meant more, which is kind of sad as well.
Can I throw something in there? Because I was thinking back to sort of noughties football and like standout things for me. And one of them, I don't know why it stands out. It was just, I really loved that tournament, bar England, was Brazil, but particularly the front three of Ronaldo, Rivaldo and Ronaldinho as a front three for Brazil in that 2002 World Cup, which obviously go on and win and were brilliant in as well and scored some amazing goals. Like I'm not sure you'll get a front three like a Brazilian front three like that again. It was pretty amazing.
I think again this comes back to this idea of kind of having cult groups of players and, you know, a front two or whatever, like that kind of idea of the focus is on this lovely teamwork. You maybe got it a little bit now with Salah, Firmino and Mane in this kind of this front three that everyone goes, you are a unit, you are a thing together, which is, you know, less now, but that front three was ridiculous.
Come back to me.
There's probably a full podcast in that, I think.
Come back to me when Salah's done his hair like Ronaldo's tuft and then we can talk business. All right?
Everything about that front three was, I mean, their names were just fun to say.
Yeah.
It was everything about them, fun to watch, fun to say, fun to talk about, not fun to play against, but just brilliant. And that World Cup, which, I mean, looking back on it, seemed pretty dodgy.
Was that the World Cup when the
Japan,
story
South Korea.
came out about Ronaldinho being like a pneumatic drill? Do you remember?
Yes, that's
do you remember
that.
that story?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'd repressed that.
Great days.
I'd repressed that tale.
Just remind me.
Well, I can't go into it.
What sort of
For legal
podcast is
reasons.
this?
Let's just say he was at it on a regular basis for long periods of time.
Let's just say exactly what I wanted to say. There was no like
filter.
euphemism in that. It was just that he was consistently having sex for a long time with a huge penis.
Oh, don't be blatant about it. I never mentioned the size of his penis.
Would you like to take this opportunity to talk about it?
I don't know.
Please
I
expand,
don't
if you
know.
will.
A pneumatic drills, but I don't know. I just don't know anymore.
I think it's a bit like you've said though, Mark. I think actually the very crux of all of this, almost everything we've said, and it might just be that four old men in a room chatting about it is what it is, but it doesn't feel like anything new can happen now, and that is very, very sad to a certain extent.
I
and it's
think
great
it
another
can.
way. It can, but okay, let's
What?
say we've been
Go on,
desensitized. Let's say that we've been desensitized. If I found out a club had done a weird deal, like a tiny Premier League club, to sign two players of the likes of Mascherano and Tevez,
Yeah.
I actually probably wouldn't be surprised anymore. Whereas with West Ham, I was like, holy crap.
Wait, let's take this as an opportunity for Mark Smith to predict the new thing that's going to happen
said it,
potentially
back it up.
in the future. that
Immediately making it old.
we can come back to.
Strikers with shoulder cannons.
Okay. Please continue.
Flying fullbacks.
Yeah, literally.
Yes.
Oh, on like turbo sort of jet sort of things.
Maybe.
Or with jetpacks.
My point is this. So I think we are of a generation where we've grown up and we've seen the technological revolution, right?
Yeah.
We've gone from being essentially analog to digital. So we're not going to be that shocked by the next things that happen over the next 50 years the way our parents have been by what's happened now. It's the same thing with football. I agree. We aren't going to be shocked by stuff anymore, but new stuff will still be happening and developing and being exciting. So I still think that there's a reason I'll still be watching it in 50 years is that new stuff will have happened. Because if you're just watching the same thing on repeat, then I will quit after 10 years.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened yet, and it won't happen going forward.
That's it. We've been desensitized to it. That's what it is.
Come
Rather
back to
than
us.
nothing new happening.
Come back to us in 50 years when we're doing a podcast on the 2030s.
Yeah.
How much we loved them.
So good.
It was so
I
great.
never saw that
I mean,
thing coming.
all that new stuff was happening with the shoulder cannons and everything. A couple of other ones that were sent in to us, just to mention. Fan Zone was mentioned by Jimmy.
Hate fan zone.
I hate Fanzone.
Well, no, it was worth it just for the. Oh, it's only Ray Parlour. That alone was worth it just for that moment.
Well, Jimmy enjoyed it, guys, so let's not take Jimmy's
Well
moment
done,
away
Jimmy.
from him.
slagging Jimmy off.
Yeah,
God's
poor,
sake.
poor Jimmy. England playing at different grounds.
Love
says
that.
Dave.
I do miss that. Pete?
I've got nothing to expand on other than
Yeah.
I like the fact that England went all over England, and I think it actually should have been a thing rather than spending hundreds of millions of pounds at Wembley.
Political.
I completely agree.
Political news, everybody.
It was like the boys on tour. The boys on tour. It was like, oh, where are we next week?
You're the national side. Go to different parts of the country that aren't London.
Yeah, it was great. I remember having England-Mexico at Derby in a 4-0 win, in a friendly. It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, and literally the whole town was talking about it.
Yeah.
First time it happened for years, hasn't happened since. It was just great.
Well done, Dave. I feel even more sorry for Jimmy now, whose suggestion just got totally
Jimmy, you idiot.
just pushed to the side. We're not interested in that, but we did like England.
I'll tell you
playing
why I
different
don't like Fan Zone is that I feel like it was the precursor to the aspect of social media football that I hate, which is
He's off.
the fan TV stuff. It's got its place, and it's just not for me. But I just don't like it, and I do blame Fan Zone for that.
Tell you
I
what
completely
did like.
utterly agree with every single word and noise that Mark just made.
Even the noises. Even the noises.
Yeah.
We usually edit those out. I'll tell you what I did like as well, what Sky did briefly. I don't know why they stopped it. I mean, it was rubbish, but I liked it because it was new. Remember when they had the player cams?
Player cam.
So you could have split screen with the
Yeah.
match and then watch any player you
Well,
wanted.
they did it when Di Maria went to United.
Oh, did
They
this
did
quite
specifically
recently?
for him, yeah.
We brought it back.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
Just for that one, I did.
Was it any good?
Or for like a minute, and then you're like, oh, right.
It's a bit of a
Just
slight
watching
novelty
a
thing,
player.
isn't it? Yeah.
I can just see a rat-like creature sort of scuttling around the pitch. Don't need to see it.
Right. Before we do football fact, football fiction, any more for any more?
Yeah, I want to talk about the sort of heady days when people didn't talk about FIFA so much. They talked about Pro Evo.
Pro Evo.
Oh, yeah.
And it was comfortably the more superior of the two. And it was just, there was no debate. If you met someone who played FIFA instead of Pro Evo, you'd be suspicious of them.
Yeah,
You'd
square.
think, who is this person?
Those are flipped now, haven't they? Those two
Completely
completely
flipped. Oh, it's all
flipped.
I actually think it's weird because FIFA growing up, right, during the 90s, 95, 97, indoor football.
The French
without-
game
Goes without saying.
Yeah.
Then, like you say, decades.
No, so in the 90s, for me,
okay.
it was International Superstar Soccer, which
Yeah.
became
Too
Pro
arcadey.
Evo.
Too
Became Pro
arcadey.
Evo. Now, weirdly, the games themselves, FIFA's not that good a game anymore.
No.
And Pro Evo is quite good, but you're not going to catch anyone playing Pro Evo because it's lame.
And basically, that Pro Evo comes down to one player as well, doesn't it? Just
Adriano,
everyone
99.
straight away going to Inter Milan and just
Yeah.
choosing Adriano and shooting from the halfway line every time
Yeah.
and sometimes scoring, but always challenging the keeper. They're just a pure joy. You can't be Inter Milan. Why? Well, if you are, you're not starting
Yeah,
Adriano.
yeah.
Well, I am starting Adriano. Well, you're not because he's like a god in this game. So what
Yeah.
are you doing?
And I miss that. I do genuinely miss that. And again, that is probably just a middle-aged man reminiscing about stuff from
I
his
think you can
past.
have it. One more from me: multiple player unveiling photo shoots.
mate.
So
Oh, yeah.
That's
quite
really
specific.
niche.
it's quite niche.
No, I'm all for this. I agree
He's
with
been
Matt.
saving this one right for the
There's,
end.
Just straight away, a picture springs to mind of it was Houllier and Phil Thompson. Not Phil Thompson. It was Houllier and Roy
Evans.
Roy Evans.
Doing
yeah.
They were a period together, weren't they?
Yeah, one springs to mind straight away for me. It was Houllier and Roy Evans when they were together, and these 6 players in the seats around them at Sander Westerveld
Oh, wow.
and that area. It's just phenomenal. Why doesn't that happen anymore?
Because they all do it on their own Instagram, that's why.
Yeah,
That's true,
Because
yeah.
it comes back to them being individuals rather than parts of these groups. I mean, if you think about that Chelsea spree, I remember it was Duff, Bridge, and
All in one day.
Yeah, all in one day, all together getting signed, and that was part of the excitement of holy crap, they're all there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's
that-
half a team you just bought today.
Yeah. And they're all there together, and I completely agree. But that comes down again to it's about the individual rather than the team much more now. And also, your sponsors at certainly the top
Yeah.
level, you've got huge sponsorship pressure. You can't have one person who's sponsored by one thing and another hit. It's just
The last time we saw it that I remember was Suarez and Andy Carroll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did do it either
yeah, they
side.
did, yeah.
King Kenny. Hashtag take me back. I'm going to start tweeting like just a 19-year-old girl, just constantly just pictures of like multiple player photos. She's hashtag take me back.
So
Is
did
that
you, say
what
you're
the
gonna start,
average
did you say you're going to start tweeting a 19-year-old girl?
Like a 19-year-old.
sorry.
I get confused.
Is that what 19-year-old girls do?
That's a lot of it. I don't know about 19-year-olds, but in the 20s, I don't know.
Should we go football fact, football fiction?
Let's do it.
Okay, so just a reminder here, because you will each have a statement, one of which is a fact, two of which are made up totally. They are fiction. Normally we would do it along the theme. Today's theme is a little bit more woolly because it's things we miss from the noughties rather than a specific thing. So a reminder.
So I put this together today and decided instead of kind of going too nebulous, we're going to focus in on 2 men we've mentioned of Andy Gray and Richard Keys.
Okay, so let's start with our special guest today.
Yeah.
Very special guest, Mark Smith.
My fact is this. Martin Tyler once made an official complaint against Andy Gray because Andy Gray stole his halftime pie at Loftus Road.
Oh,
Official complaint seems a bit harsh.
That's
not
going hardcore,
He's
isn't
gone
it?
to the top.
When you the press rooms at as you might well know, when you go to the football at half time, it is a bit of a scrum, and if there are a lot of people there, the pies go quite quickly. In fact, I was at the press room at Ellen Road just last week where they ran out of cups for a cup of coffee, so I had to go without.
Was it you was telling me the Berbatov story? Was that on this podcast or was that?
No, I didn't tell you a Berbatov story.
What's this?
He basically at a Spurs game just started eating all the food, and someone's like, who didn't know who he was, who's this guy? You can't eat. Sorry, you can't eat that, mate. You've got to have a pass. And he just like shoved a huge pie into his face and started, eating it in front of, just smile, and then just walked off and said, I can do what I want, or something along those lines.
Fair enough. I didn't have the guts to do that with my cup of coffee, but they don't have quite the standing as Dimitar Berbatov does at Tottenham.
Speaking of guts, I went to a League One game and into the press room there, where you got League One, League Two. You're lucky if you get a cup of tea at that level, and there was a place that did quite good pies, and we all had a pie at half time.
Was it Oldham by any chance?
It's not Oldham. And in the second half, as I looked around, you could see every single person in the press box going, no, something's not sat right. This isn't good. And increasingly, you could see everyone going, oh, Christ.
Lasagna gate.
So the lasagna gate in the press box. And it was...
Was it a Balti pie?
It was not a Balti pie.
Was it Wigan?
Stop guessing. Stop guessing specific pies and towns.
I love guessing games.
Come on, fact or fiction? What's mine?
Mark.
No one's even had a go at it.
Well, wait a minute. You've just said it.
Come on.
We're on to pie. We got knee deep in pies.
I thought you were going to scrutinise me more.
No, don't worry. That's coming. Don't you worry. Holmes, what you got?
So you'll love this, because Andy Gray was a tough man in his day, but he was actually really scared of Richard Keys. Come out a few years ago.
Scared of Richard Keys.
I will say I'm scared of Richard Keys.
What, because of the hair?
I think just the whole package from top to bottom is a terrifying prospect, isn't it?
Was there anything specific he cited as being scary?
It was just that he was newer to the industry. Richard Keys obviously was a behemoth. Don't know how to say that word.
Behemoth.
Richard Keys was just like a king in the industry, and he was just a little bit wary of him, I think, and he used to chastise him a little bit if he got things wrong. Andy Gray, Richard Keys, have a little go at him, and it just got to the point that he just become quite scared of him, and he spoke about it a few years ago in an interview.
What did he actually say in the interview?
Just that because they were praising him about his great career and stuff in the industry, and saying, I think it was one of the broadsheets and saying he was a sort of a miss on Sky Sports, and he was saying basically when he started out he wasn't confident at all, and he had to really learn the ropes, and was praising Richard Keys. He hasn't got a problem with him, obviously, and was just saying when he first started, Richard Keys used to really have a go at him and pull him up on things all the time. They got to a stage when he was just kind of worried of making a mistake all the time.
Pete, what have you got?
Andy Gray and Richard Keys have made so many negative comments about various football clubs that a number of newspapers refused to discuss what they'd said.
Sorry, just give that to me again.
Richard Keys and Andy Gray made so many negative comments about some football clubs in the past that a lot of fans were getting their local papers.
Sorry.
That's all right. It was only you're only repeating it for my benefit because I didn't hear it first time fully when I was writing it down. So it was only for that benefit. So
it was Richard Keys and Andy. Richard Keys and Andy Gray, basically. You heard. Get fucked.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, basically.
So many negative comments.
They'd made so many negative comments as some of the newspapers, because obviously, back then and even now, you'd get like, he XYZ has said this about the club or this about the club. Loads of newspapers refused to cover them because they were so disgusted about what they were saying about some of their local teams.
So, let's go back to the Andy Gray pie theft.
Yes.
Which, for me, is the one that I really want to be true here. Do we know any more details on the pie, how the theft occurred, or what was the aftermath?
I don't know what the pie contents were, but I do know that we were talking about the press room at half time. Yeah. Well, at Loftus Road, they're in the gantry. They stay in the gantry because it's quite tight to get down and up again at half time to the second half. It's quite difficult. So apparently it was swiped from within the gantry. So someone's brought it up for them, and he swiped it, which sounds to me like he's turned his back for 5 seconds and he just yoinked it.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine, if you're in close proximity with someone in a small environment, it can take its toll, can't it? And so I imagine it would be a huge problem in a room of that size to steal someone's pie. I don't know what the context was.
And there was probably build-up as well. He probably half inch the coffee first, and
weeks and weeks. He's probably
It's been building, and then eventually it's finished with the pie theft.
He probably nicked a Bovril at White Hart Lane.
So he made an official complaint. Who'd you complain to?
Well, it was someone at Sky Sports. I haven't got the name of the person. But it would have been the guy above them at Sky Sports.
Charo, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
probably.
chief of
And
pies.
it was like taken seriously, but then dropped.
Any repercussions?
I don't think so. Just free pies for life.
Okay, worth doing in the end. Wait a minute, what have I even bloody written here? Oh, so and I can't imagine Andy Gray being scared of anyone, to be quite honest with you.
I don't think he wasn't
I
scared.
think he would have given it back.
No, because he was new, obviously, and really keen to try and make his way in the industry. He wasn't scared of him physically or anything like that, but he was an expert, he wasn't, so he just become really worried about making mistakes, basically, because Keys was... And he wasn't doing it in a nasty way, I don't think. He was trying to improve him, but Gray just got to a stage where he becomes scared of broadcasting because he was worried about making mistakes and getting pulled up.
And finally, with the newspapers, they refused to. They were criticising local teams. Well, I mean, which kind of teams? You know,
well,
generally only cover the big teams, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's relatively more recent, this one, but there is an example, I think, at Newcastle where Richard Keys was tweeting non-stop saying Rafa Benitez at Newcastle wasn't doing right and maybe he should stick around or should he not go. And then he was also saying, look, if he wants some money to spend, why doesn't he spend some of his own money? He's got enough of it. And I think it might have been the Chronicle, I think it was the Chronicle, who said, we're not going to, because fans kept saying, are you not going to talk about this? And I'm like, well, no, because we're just absolutely sick of dealing with it. So, you know, these are two guys who are pretty outspoken. You can see them annoying enough papers for them to go, we're not reporting this anymore.
Pete did a little subtle thing there of looking back at his piece of paper as if to,
I'm going to do
suggest
that. It was the Telegraph.
Really clever. He's awful with the mind games. I don't like it. It makes me.
It was a Balti pie.
It makes me really uneasy when you do that. Okay, I've got to pick one of these. It's either a stolen pie, Andy Gray being scared of Richard Keys, or Grays and Keys making negative comments, newspapers refusing to cover what they were saying. I'm going to discount the newspapers, Pete,
right.
Even though you did that little sneaky look at your paper as if to say, yeah, I'm the one with the real one.
Good actor.
It always seems to be Holmesy, but I'm going to say it's not. I am going to say, possibly against my better judgment, but just knowing what those press rooms can be like and the fight for the pie, I am going to go that you, Mark, have got the footballing fact and that Andy Gray nicked a pie from Martin Tyler.
Yeah, you're absolutely wrong.
Oh, no. Okay, in that case, it's Mark Holmes.
It's not.
Mind games, motherfucker!
One more go?
I don't want to have another go. It's not fun anymore. I'm going to say it's Pete.
It is me.
Well, there you go.
It is me. Mind games. I am a superb actor, and I'm available for an unbelievably cheaper rate than Mark Smith.
I would genuinely...
No.
I would...
You'd be surprised.
Very competitive.
Just paying him in one Balti pie, aren't we? I thought that was it. I would genuinely be interested to know, and it's contact@planetfootball.com. If everyone listening gets it wrong every week, or whether it's just me that gets it wrong on every single one.
To be fair.
Contact@planetfootball.com. We would love to hear from you. This episode was brought to you by our friends at Football Index, the football stock market where you can buy and sell players for real money. Sign up today at footballindex.co.uk and use the code TBMIndex to trade with a £500 money back guarantee. New customers only, 18 plus. Chaps, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Now have an urgent need to eat a pie. But apart from that, we will see you next time. Mark, cheers.
Adios.
This has to start. You're just going to spend the next week now thinking what language you're going to use. Mark Smith, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
very
you for
much.
being an adult and responding normally. And also, Pete, thank you very much.
Good day, blue passports.
We'll see you next time on the Broken Metatarsal.